everyone. Welcome to Sam's Summaries. This episode is a deep dive discussion into Sam Fury's summary of Chapter 9 from the book Models by Mark Manson. It has been created with the help of AI. The chapter is titled, What Are Your Stories? You can read the original post at samfury.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting to be back.
Today we're going to be tackling those sneaky internal stories we all have that can really hold us back in life, and especially when it comes to dating.
Right.
And to guide us through all of this, we're diving deep into Mark Manson's book, Models, specifically Chapter 9.
Great chapter.
You ready to get a little introspective?
Always.
I think one of the things that Manson does really well in this chapter is he kind of goes beyond just the surface level dating advice and digs into the psychology.
Right.
Like, why do we self-sabotage?
Yeah, why do we create these narratives in our heads that prevent us from actually going after what we want?
Right. It's like we create these stories, these like, I'm not tall enough to approach her, or I need to make more money before I can date.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. And it's so interesting because
It's crazy how we limit ourselves.
on the one hand, these stories can feel comforting, you know?
Right.
Like they're protecting us from rejection or whatever.
Yeah, they give you an excuse not to try.
But the problem is they prevent us from taking action.
Totally.
Like they just keep us stuck.
So then what's the antidote?
Like,
What does Manson suggest we do to combat this?
he's very clear on this point.
Yeah.
Action trumps everything.
Okay.
Like just go for it.
Okay, so just
Like stop waiting for the perfect moment or like crafting the perfect line in your head. Just
go. Don't overthink it.
don't overthink it. Just take action.
I can already see how this could apply to so many areas of life, not just dating.
Totally. Yeah.
But okay, so if fear and hesitation are kind of what's holding us back,
Yeah.
how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
Manson talks about anxiety a lot in this chapter, right?
He does. And he calls it out as probably the biggest obstacle in dating,
Yeah.
which I think is true. And he defines it as a form of neediness.
Interesting.
But what I think is helpful is that he breaks down how we typically deal with this anxiety into 3 distinct patterns.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so there's the blame game, apathy and avoidance and intellectualizing.
Ooh, those are some heavy hitters.
I know, right?
I'm guessing the blame game is when we point the finger at something or someone else for our fear.
You got it.
Like, she didn't smile back, so it's not even worth trying.
Exactly. It's shifting responsibility, right?
Totally.
And then you have apathy and avoidance, which is basically convincing yourself that you don't even care.
Right.
Or that the goal isn't even important.
Like, oh, I don't even want to date right now anyway.
Exactly. It's a way to detach from the potential pain of rejection.
Okay, and then there's intellectualizing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of this one.
Me too.
It's like that, I need to read one more book on dating before I actually talk to someone.
Right. Or like, I need to do more research on this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what's important to recognize is that while these patterns seem different on the surface, they all serve the same purpose.
Okay.
Protection
Protecting ourselves.
from discomfort.
Which might feel good in the short term, but ultimately, it's not helpful.
Keeps us stuck.
Keeps us
In
stuck.
the long run.
So how do we break free from these patterns?
Well, Manson gives us a 4-step plan.
I like it.
So step 1,
Okay.
pinpoint your anxiety trigger.
Okay.
Like, what specific stage of dating causes you the most anxiety?
So is it approaching someone?
Yeah.
Is it asking them out? Is it going in for the kiss?
Yeah, like what is it for you?
Got it.
Figure out what that trigger is.
Okay, so identify the trigger, and then what?
Then recognize your pattern.
Okay.
So which of those 3 tendencies do you lean on when you encounter that trigger?
Right, so is it
Is it blame game?
blame game? Is it apathy and avoidance?
Or is it intellectualizing?
Okay, so we've identified the trigger. We've identified our pattern. What are the steps 3 and 4?
Okay, step 3.
Okay.
Set a concrete goal.
Okay.
Not like a vague, I want to be better at dating goal.
Right.
Something specific and measurable. Like, I'm going to approach 3 new people a day for a week.
Oh, that's a good one.
Something like that.
Okay, I like it. And finally,
Finally find an accountability partner.
well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Share your goal with someone you trust who can help you stay on track.
I love that takes the pressure off,
Takes the pressure off.
relying on our own willpower.
Which, let's be honest, can be pretty fickle.
Exactly.
Can be tough to do it on our own.
But going back to the blame game for a second, Manson doesn't just leave it at that, does he?
He doesn't.
he delves a little deeper.
He does.
I remember this.
So he explains how the blame game is actually another manifestation of neediness.
Interesting, okay.
And he encourages a really powerful shift
Okay.
from blame to responsibility.
So instead of saying, like, it's their fault, I'm not successful at dating, we start to own our part in the process.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
And what's key here is framing responsibility not as a burden, but as a sacrifice.
Okay.
A conscious choice you're making to empower yourself.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
It is, right?
Now, I remember there's a part in this chapter where Manson throws in a bit of a curveball.
Yeah, he
He
does.
suggests limiting certain, let's just say, pleasurable activities to once a week.
Yeah, those ones.
I'm sure people can guess.
Yeah, he's talking about things like porn consumption and masturbation.
Whoa,
Yeah.
okay, that's pretty specific.
He is.
What's his reasoning behind that?
Well, he ties it back to the idea of managing expectations
Okay,
and boosting real-life motivation.
okay,
He argues that overexposure to idealized scenarios,
okay.
like what we often see in porn, can lead to unrealistic expectations and actually decrease our drive to connect with real people.
So instead of getting stuck in this fantasy loop,
Yeah.
we should be channeling that energy towards building actual connections.
Yeah, with people we can actually have a relationship with in real life.
Right, with real people.
Real people, yeah.
Okay, so it's about directing that desire towards achievable goals in your actual life.
Exactly.
I'm curious, what do you think about this suggestion? Do you think it's too extreme, or could it be helpful?
I mean, it's definitely a bold suggestion,
It is.
but I can see where he's coming from. And
Yeah.
you know what? This actually makes me think back to something I read in another one of Manson's books,
Yeah.
where he talked about, it's like you're starting to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But before we get too far down that road,
Right.
let's circle back to chapter 9 for a second.
Okay.
There's another concept we haven't touched on yet,
Okay.
the honest signal value chain.
Oh, yes.
It's a good one.
I remember this part. It felt like we were stepping into the animal kingdom for a minute.
Yeah,
Didn't he use peacocks to illustrate this concept?
he did.
I love that example.
That's a good one.
So how does that translate to humans, though?
Okay, so remember how he talked about how peacocks with the most elaborate tails are considered the most attractive?
Right, they're showing off.
Yeah, because those tails actually demonstrate their survival skills.
Right.
Like they're able to survive despite having this big flashy target on their backs. It's like a handicap almost.
It is.
Yeah.
And that signals strength and genetic fitness to potential mates.
Oh, so it's like a signal that they're strong and healthy.
Exactly.
Okay, but we don't exactly have giant colorful tails to strut around with.
No, we don't.
So what are our human equivalents?
Well, we signal value in other ways.
Okay, how so?
Think about qualities like confidence, ambition, a sense of humor, kindness, intelligence.
Got it.
These are all things that can be attractive to others
Right.
because they suggest something positive about our character and capabilities.
So it's not just about looks, it's about what's underneath.
Exactly. It's about the whole package.
Okay, that makes sense. But I remember him making a distinction between genuine signals and what he called counterfeit ones.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
What did he mean by that?
So he used the example of someone trying to project confidence by bragging or being arrogant.
Oh, yeah.
Like that might seem like a signal of confidence on the surface,
Right.
but it's actually a counterfeit signal.
Because it's not genuine. Exactly. It's not coming from a place of genuine inner strength.
Oh, so it's like trying to fake it till you make it.
Yeah. And those kinds of counterfeit signals usually backfire.
They do.
They come across as insecure or inauthentic.
Which is the opposite of what you're going for.
Exactly.
Okay, so the takeaway here is to focus on cultivating genuine qualities that reflect your true self.
Yes. Build real value.
Don't try to fake it.
Don't fake it, be real.
I like that it seems like he's advocating for a much more authentic approach to dating,
He is.
which is refreshing,
It is.
considering all the advice out there that focuses on tricks and hacks.
Yeah, he's all about being your best self,
Right.
but not a version of yourself that you've manufactured to please others.
It's about self-improvement, but from a genuine place.
Yes, genuine growth.
I love that. Now, where does the concept of social proof fit into all of this?
Good question. Social proof is essentially how our value is perceived by others,
Okay.
based on our interactions and relationships.
So it's like a social currency.
It is like a social currency.
That influences how attractive we appear to potential partners.
Exactly.
Okay, so if someone is surrounded by interesting people or seems to have a fulfilling social life, that signals to others that they must be interesting and worth getting to know.
Yeah, it's like a subconscious validation of their worth.
Interesting.
And it's not about being popular or having a ton of friends.
Okay.
It's about the quality of your connections
I see.
and how you engage with the world around you.
That makes me think about online dating profiles.
Uh-huh.
Do you think those are a form of social proof? Or is it too easy to create a misleading impression online?
That's a good question.
It is a tough one.
I think they can be a form of social proof to some extent,
Okay.
but it's important to remember that online profiles are often curated versions of ourselves.
Yeah, they don't always tell the full story.
They don't.
It's easy to present a polished facade online.
It is.
So true social proof seems like it has to come from genuine interactions and relationships built over time.
Right, those real-life connections.
Exactly, and that's something that can't be faked.
Nope.
So how do we build this social proof then?
How do we build it?
Yeah, in a way that's authentic and meaningful.
Well, Manson has some suggestions, and they might surprise you.
Okay, I'm listening.
He recommends engaging in activities that make you feel uncomfortable or even a little scared.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he's all about pushing those boundaries.
Why would he suggest that?
Because he argues that stepping outside your comfort zone demonstrates courage and a willingness to grow.
That makes sense.
It shows that you're not afraid to challenge yourself and try new things.
Though it's not about trying to appear perfect and having it all figured out.
No.
It's about embracing our imperfections.
Yes.
Showing that we're willing to learn and evolve.
Exactly.
This feels like a big shift from traditional dating advice,
It is.
which often emphasizes playing it cool and projecting an air of effortless confidence.
Right. Manson's challenging those norms.
Yeah.
He's saying authenticity and a willingness to be vulnerable are far more valuable in the long run.
I like that. Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Even if it means feeling a little uncomfortable at times.
That's where the growth happens.
Which brings us back to another one of his suggestions that might seem a bit out there at first.
Uh-huh. The one we talked about earlier.
Limiting certain pleasurable activities to once a week.
Oh, yeah, that one.
What was your initial reaction to that idea when you first read it?
Honestly, I was a little taken aback.
Yeah, me too.
Like, wait, what?
But as I read on, it started to make more sense.
Yeah, it's not about deprivation.
It's about being intentional with our choices.
Exactly. It's consciously choosing to prioritize real-life connections and experiences over excessive indulgence in fleeting pleasures.
So it's like we're creating a bit of scarcity to increase the value and enjoyment of those experiences when we do have them.
That's a great way to put it.
And he suggests channeling that energy and desire into pursuing genuine connections and meaningful activities.
Right. It's about putting that energy to good use.
And it all ties back to the idea of building that honest signal value chain right.
It does.
Making choices that reflect your best self, contribute to your overall well-being.
Yeah, it's about aligning your actions with your values.
This is a lot to take in.
It is.
We've gone from understanding internal narratives to exploring the concept of honest signals.
We've covered a lot of ground.
And we even tackled some unconventional suggestions for growth.
It's been a deep dive.
I feel like I need a moment to process it all.
Take your time. It's a lot to digest.
But before we move on, what stood out to you the most from this part of our conversation?
I think what resonated with me most is...
It's funny, as we're talking about all of this, dating can be a real roller coaster of emotions.
It is.
There are highs and lows.
Excitement.
Disappointment.
Yeah.
It's a lot to handle.
Totally.
And it kind of makes me think about this concept that Manson brings up in the book, which is emotional resilience.
Yeah, that's so key.
How do we handle all of that?
Right.
Manson really emphasizes the importance of what he calls an anti-fragile ego.
That's right.
Now, I remember that phrase standing out to me, but to be honest, I'm not sure I totally grasped what he meant by it.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me?
Of course.
And for our listeners who might be in the same boat.
Right. So imagine your ego is like a shield.
Okay.
A fragile ego would shatter when hit with rejection or disappointment.
Makes sense.
A resilient ego might be able to withstand the blow.
Okay.
But an anti-fragile ego actually absorbs the impact and uses it to become even stronger.
So it's not just about bouncing back. It's about using those tough experiences as fuel for growth.
Exactly.
And I like that that's a really empowering way to look at it.
It is.
But how do we cultivate this anti-fragile ego?
Yeah.
What can we do to actually strengthen that emotional muscle?
Well, one of the key things Manson talks about is embracing discomfort.
Okay.
He encourages us to step outside of our comfort zones regularly.
So like trying new things, facing our fears, having those difficult conversations.
Exactly.
The more we expose ourselves to discomfort, the more comfortable we become with it.
Right. It's like building up a tolerance.
Okay, so that tolerance then allows us to handle the challenges of dating.
Yeah, and life in general.
With more grace and resilience.
We become less reactive.
We don't fall apart as easily.
Right.
But Manson also reminds us that we can't control everything.
That's true.
Especially when it comes to dating.
You can't force someone to like you.
You can't predict how things will unfold.
Nope.
It's like trying to hold water in your hand.
I love that analogy.
The tighter you squeeze, the more slip through your fingers.
Exactly. So instead of trying to micromanage every outcome, Manson suggests we focus on what we can control.
Which is?
Our own actions, our responses, and our mindset.
So it's about finding that inner peace and acceptance, regardless of external circumstances.
Yes.
And that brings us back to the idea of responsibility that we talked about earlier.
It does.
Owning our choices and reactions rather than blaming others.
Right, taking ownership.
Because when we take responsibility, we empower ourselves to make different choices.
Exactly.
We become active participants in shaping our experience.
Rather than passive victims of circumstance.
I like that. And I'm also remembering that Manson talks about self-awareness as being a crucial part of building emotional resilience.
Yes. Self-awareness is huge.
He encourages us to really pay attention to our emotional patterns, our triggers, our habitual responses.
Right. It's like that moment when you feel yourself getting defensive or shutting down.
Yeah.
What's the story you're telling yourself in that moment?
What's going on?
Yeah.
It's like taking a step back and observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment.
Just noticing them.
And the more awareness we have, the more choices we have about how to respond.
Right.
And that self-awareness is so important for relationships, too.
It is.
Because it allows us to communicate our needs effectively, set boundaries, navigate conflict.
I love that.
It's all connected. Building that emotional resilience benefits us in all areas of our lives.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from internal narratives and honest signals to emotional resilience, and some pretty thought-provoking suggestions for growth. We've really unpacked a lot of Manson's wisdom.
We have. It's been a great discussion.
And I think it's important to remember that building emotional resilience is a journey, not a destination.
It's an ongoing process.
There's no finish line. It's all about embracing the process.
Exactly. And the more we embrace that process, the more equipped we become to handle whatever life throws our way.
Whether it's in dating or any other aspect of life.
That's right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
I
want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
What's the one thing you hope they take away from our conversation today?
I hope they remember this. You are capable of more than you think.
Good one.
Don't let those internal stories hold you back.
Right.
Embrace the discomfort, take responsibility for your experience, and never stop learning and growing.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Sam's Summaries. If you found this episode useful, let us know with a like, follow, and share. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to visit samfury.com to get free access to all of Sam's original summaries, which you can download as PDFs, as well as other exclusive content. It's all completely free at samfury.com.